Hi everyone. In this quick tip, I'm going to talk about 3 techniques you can use to minimize the size of your fact tables. When I say fact table, I don't necessarily mean in a data warehouse. It could be a larger table in an OLTP system that has smaller code tables that act like dimensions. It's advantageous for fact tables to be as efficient as possible. This reduces data loading time and allows for more of the table to fit into memory, which makes queries run faster. The first and most important technique is to carefully select the data types for the columns in the table. This is something you should be doing anyway, but I can't emphasize it enough because it's the foundation of how space efficient your table will be. In the fact table, there will be a set of foreign key columns that reference dimensions, and then there will be a set of fact columns that will either be selected or aggregated. The latter set I'm not going to cover here as it's a much larger discussion, but just be aware of the size of the data types that you're using. For the set of foreign key columns, focus instead on minimizing the size of the dimension table primary key columns, which will get carried through to the fact table columns. Usually, the primary key column of these tables is either an integer type or a unique identifier. Find the smallest data type that will accommodate the range of values you need both now and in the foreseeable future. Remember that you can also use the negative values of the signed integer types. When making changes, start by looking at the dimension tables that hold only a few rows, but there are many rows referencing that table. The reason why you want to do this is to provide the highest impact possible. It's really painful to see a unique identifier column used as the primary key in a dimension table that only holds a few rows. If a tiny int had been used instead, this is 1/16 of the storage required, and when you multiply that over millions or even billions of rows, the wasted storage adds up very quickly. The second technique is to use data compression, which is an Enterprise Edition feature found in SQL Server 2008 and higher. Of course, compressing data isn't free, and the trade-off is increased CPU usage for decreased storage usage. Applying compression will also reduce access speed to the table for both reads and writes. That isn't to say that the overhead is a lot, it isn't, but it is measurable and it may make a difference in your environment. When turning on data compression, there are 2 compression levels you can choose from, row and page. I'm not going to get into the technical differences here, but I do recommend that you test both of them. If you're using table partitioning, you can selectively apply compression to each of the partitions. It could be enabled for historical data that's read-only, but left disabled for the active partition where most of the reads and writes happen. The third technique is to use sparse columns, which were also introduced in SQL Server 2008. This feature, unlike data compression, is available in every edition. The idea of sparse columns is to reduce the amount of storage required where there are a lot of nulls in a column. As the name implies, it's used on columns individually, not on the whole table. The trade-off with this feature is that while null values take up 0 space, non-null values take up slightly more space than they would normally. Microsoft publishes a table with rough guidelines for when to implement sparse columns, and I'll put a link to it in the description. Be aware there are a few restrictions that you'll want to review before implementing this feature. One that's relevant to this discussion is that, at least as of making this video, sparse columns can't be used in combination with data compression. To summarize, first look at and optimize the data types in the tables, which will help in all scenarios. Then think about using sparse columns if you have a lot of nulls, or use data compression if you can use Enterprise Edition features. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.